My name is Clara Whitman, and I turned 72 last Saturday. We were sitting at the Maple Grill, a quiet family restaurant that smelled of butter and birthdays. My son Ethan had ordered a vanilla cake with too many candles, and my daughter-in-law Melissa made everyone pose for pictures I never asked for. I was lifting my glass when I heard her voice, soft, careful, pretending to be sweet. "Make it nice for her," she whispered to Ethan. "It's her last birthday anyway." The words slid through the noise like a crack in glass. No one else seemed to notice, but I did. I felt the fork in my hand tremble. I pressed it flat against the table so it wouldn't rattle. For a second, I thought maybe I had misheard. That age was playing tricks on me. But then Melissa turned toward me, smiling wide enough to hide anything. I smiled back, because that's what polite women do when they're insulted in silk. The candles flickered. Everyone started singing, off-key and cheerful, as if the room hadn't just gone cold. I blew them out, one by one, and thought about the wish people expected me to make. Health, peace, maybe a little luck. Instead, I wished for clarity, because I had a feeling this birthday wasn't the celebration they wanted me to remember. It was the warning. When the dinner was over, the noise of the restaurant clung to me like the smell of burnt candles. My son insisted on paying the check, waving his card in that half-guilty way men do when they want to look generous but are in a hurry to leave. Melissa kept smiling for photos, tilting her head just right, pretending we were a happy family. On the drive home, I sat in the back seat and watched the reflection of the streetlights glide over the car window. They looked like little bursts of light, fading as soon as they appeared, just like the warmth I used to feel around them. No one spoke. The radio played an old country song about second chances, and I almost laughed. When we pulled into the driveway, Melissa leaned over the seat. "We left a few envelopes on your kitchen counter. Mom," she said, her voice casual but too smooth. "Just insurance renewals and some bills. Ethan will come by tomorrow to help you go through them." I thanked her, pretending not to notice how she didn't quite meet my eyes. The porch light flickered as I stepped out, the same bulb my husband had screwed in 20 years ago. I remember thinking, Tom always said flickering light means the wire's loose, not dead yet. Inside, the house felt colder than usual. The leftover cake sat on the counter in its cardboard box, frosting smudged on the lid. I cut a small slice, but the sweetness turned to chalk in my mouth. The candles had burned down to wax puddles, frozen in time. I turned on the kettle. The whistle filled the silence, high and lonely. Then I noticed the envelopes, 3 of them, stacked neatly by the toaster. The top one had Melissa's handwriting on it, her loops perfect like someone rehearsing control. I opened the first envelope. A greeting card to the world's best mom. You deserve peace and comfort. There was a $50 restaurant gift card inside. I smiled, but it didn't reach anywhere near my heart. The second envelope was thicker, printed forms from an insurance company. I skimmed the lines. Policy transfer authorization, beneficiary update request, durable power of attorney. My eyes paused. That phrase again. A chill moved through me, not from fear but recognition. I'd seen too many people sign away their choices at the hospital where I used to volunteer. Papers dressed up as help, promises wrapped around signatures. I folded the papers back carefully, as if they might explode if I moved too fast. Then I made tea and sat at the kitchen table, letting the steam blur the edges of the world. The clock ticked steady. Somewhere outside, a car door slammed, followed by muffled laughter. For a moment, I wondered if I was overreacting. Maybe it was all innocent, just practical planning. Melissa liked control. Yes, but control didn't always mean cruelty. I wanted to believe that, But then I remembered her whisper at dinner. It's her last birthday anyway. The words pressed against my ribs like a bruise that refused to fade. I turned off the light and went to the window. The reflection of my face floated on the glass, soft, gray, tired. The house across the street was dark except for a TV flickering behind lace curtains. I could almost see Tom sitting beside me again, his hand covering mine, that small smile that always said, "You already know what to do. Clara, you always have." Around midnight, I heard a noise, voices outside. I cracked the front door open just enough to listen. Ethan and Melissa were standing by the car, the engine running low. "She'll sign it," Melissa said. "She trusts you." Ethan sighed. "I just don't like tricking her." "You're not tricking her," she snapped. "You're protecting her. Besides, that house will rot if she stays in it." They drove off. The taillights disappeared into the dark. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned my forehead against the wood. My breath fogged the glass pane. "Protecting me," she'd said. People always use that word before they take something you love. In the quiet, I made myself another cup of tea, the second of the night. I didn't cry. Instead, I reached under the kitchen sink for the small tin box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were old documents, Tom's will, our house deed, and a photograph of us standing in front of the porch the summer we finished painting it. My hands didn't shake when I touched the papers. They felt heavier now, as if they'd remembered their own worth. When the clock struck 1, I folded the forms Melissa had left and placed them next to Tom's picture. Then I whispered, "I think they've forgotten who built this house, Tom, but I haven't." The window pane rattled lightly from the night wind. I took it as an answer. I didn't sleep. I sat at that table until the first gray light crept across the floor, and the steam from my last cup of tea had long gone cold. By dawn, I knew 2 things for certain. 1, they weren't going to stop. And 2, I wasn't going to let them. The morning after the sleepless night, I opened the curtains and watched the sun struggle through the Oregon fog. The house looked the same, but it didn't feel like mine anymore. Everything, the porch swing, the chipped teacup on the sill, felt like items already tagged in an estate sale. I made coffee and stared at the stack of papers again. The print looked too official, too eager. Somewhere between the clauses and signatures, my name had become an item to be managed. Around 10, the phone rang. Ethan's number. I let it go to voicemail. His voice, cheerful and guilty, spilled through the speaker. "Hey, Mom, I'll swing by this afternoon. We'll just take care of those forms, real quick, okay? Take care." I had spent 40 years taking care of everyone else. Maybe it was time to return the favor. I called the only person I knew who might still remember the version of me before I became Mom. "Lawrence Hayes speaking." A deep voice answered. "It's Clara Whitman," I said. "You handled Tom's will." A pause, then a warm chuckle. "Clara, it's been ages. How's that porch holding up?" "Still standing," I said, "but the people around it, not so much." By noon, I was sitting across from Lawrence in his small downtown office. The room smelled of coffee and old books. He listened without interrupting, his eyebrows rising slightly when I described the insurance renewals. When I finished, he tapped his pen. "Clara, that's not a renewal. That's a transfer of ownership. If you sign, your son gets full authority over your assets." I exhaled slowly. "So it's theft, just with better stationery." "Legally, it's consent," he said. "Morally, it's betrayal." He leaned back. "You have 2 options. Refuse to sign and risk a family war, or quietly move your assets somewhere safe before they make a move." "I'm done with quiet surrender," I said. but quiet strategy that I can manage. That afternoon, we visited the bank. I moved my savings into a new trust, the Whitman Literacy Fund, in memory of Tom. The bank clerk, a young woman with pink nails, smiled politely. She didn't know she was witnessing a small revolution. When I came home, the mailbox flag was up. Inside, another envelope, this time from a real estate agency. The letter congratulated me for beginning the downsizing process. My stomach tightened. They were moving faster than I expected. I sat down, pen in hand, and wrote 3 notes, one to Lawrence, one to the bank, and one to myself. The one for me was short. Remember, they don't see the woman you are, only the convenience you could be around evening. The phone buzzed again. It was my granddaughter, Harper. "Hi, Grandma," she whispered, voice small and shaky. "Mom and Dad were talking about you. They said you'll be moving to a place where you can get help." I forced my voice to stay calm. "Did they say when?" "After your next doctor's appointment," she said. "Mom said it'll be easier that way." "Thank you, sweetheart," I said softly. "You've given me the best birthday gift of all, time." After we hung up, I sat in the living room, surrounded by the hum of the refrigerator and the ticking wall clock. I realized I wasn't scared anymore, just tired of being underestimated. I spent the next 2 days preparing. I gathered old photos, important papers, and Tom's military medals into a single box. Every item was a reminder of something earned, not inherited. On the 3rd morning, Ethan arrived, smiling too wide. "Hey, Mom, got those forms ready?" "Almost," I said. "Would you mind making me some tea while I look over them one last time?" He went to the kitchen, and I slipped the unsigned pages into a drawer. In their place, I left a copy of a receipt from the bank, the official confirmation of my new trust. Ethan brought the tea, his voice soft. "You know we just want what's best for you." I looked at him for a long moment. "I believe that, son. The question is, best for who?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The teacups clinked lightly as I set mine down. When he left, I locked the door behind him and finally allowed myself to breathe. The air felt lighter, the kind that fills your lungs after a storm. That night, I wrote a letter to Harper. "Dear Harper, one day you'll understand that love and control wear the same clothes until you look closely. Always look closely, and never let anyone choose your freedom for you." I folded the letter and placed it inside my jewelry box. Then I looked out the window, watching the porch light flicker again. Tom used to fix it every time it blinked, grumbling about how things only break when you stop paying attention. "Well," I whispered, "I'm paying attention now." The phone rang again around 9. Melissa this time. Her voice syrupy, her words rehearsed. "Hi, Mom, just checking in. Did Ethan help with the papers?" I let a beat of silence hang before answering. "He did. And don't worry, dear. I took care of everything." She exhaled, relieved. "Oh, wonderful. I knew you'd see it our way." "Yes," I said quietly, "our way." After the call ended, I looked at the teapot, still steaming. The house felt strangely peaceful, like it was holding its breath. Outside, the rain began to fall, tapping the roof in steady rhythm. I listened, letting the sound wash through me. Somewhere in that rhythm, I felt a pulse of defiance. They thought I was soft because I stayed silent, but silence, when chosen, is a kind of weapon. By the time the clock struck midnight, my plan was in motion. The trust was active, the assets protected, the first domino tipped. Tomorrow, I'd let them think they'd won. For now. I sipped my tea and whispered into the quiet, "Happy birthday to me." By the end of that week, The air in the house felt heavy with unspoken words. Even the floorboards seemed to creak differently, like they were tired of secrets. On Friday morning, Ethan called again. His tone was warm, practiced. "Mom, Melissa wants to take you out for dinner tonight. Just us three. We thought it'd be nice to finish that paperwork together over a good meal." A good meal. That's what people say when they're about to do something bad. I agreed without hesitation. "Of course," I said. "It's time to get everything settled." The phone clicked off, and I felt my pulse steady. I went to the desk drawer where I'd hidden the forms he left and pulled out a fresh envelope, the one I'd sealed the night before. Inside were 3 things. A notarized letter from Lawrence, confirming the creation of my trust, the legal transfer papers to the charity, and a handwritten note addressed to Ethan and Melissa. I slipped the envelope into my purse beside my old lipstick. The one Tom used to say made me look like trouble in Sunday light. The restaurant they chose wasn't the Maple Grill this time. It was fancier, cloth napkins, quiet lighting, and the faint hum of a piano, a place for good impressions. When I arrived, Ethan stood to help me with my chair. Melissa kissed my cheek, her perfume too sweet, like frosting gone sour. "You look wonderful, Mom," she said, arranging her napkin. "We're so happy you came." "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I replied, smiling as if the world were exactly what I planned to miss. A waiter poured water into our glasses. I watched the ripples form, thinking how easily things disturb calm surfaces. Melissa started with small talk, Harper's piano recital, Ethan's promotion, the weather. I played along, nodding, laughing where appropriate. We ordered. She had salmon, Ethan steak, and I asked for soup, though I doubted I'd taste a thing. Halfway through the meal, the conversation shifted. Melissa reached into her bag and pulled out a slim folder. "We brought the updated documents. Mom, all you need to do is sign at the bottom. It's just for convenience." Her words landed soft, rehearsed, like lines from a play she'd practiced too many times. I let them sit between us. "Of course," I said, reaching into my purse. "I actually have something for you both, too." Melissa's eyes brightened, maybe expecting a check or a sentimental letter. Ethan smiled, relieved. I handed them the envelope, sliding it across the table as if it were nothing more than a birthday card. "Go ahead," I said. "You first." Melissa opened it, pulling out the papers with a casual glance that froze halfway through. Her smile flickered. Ethan leaned over to read. Their eyes darted over the letterhead: Whitman Literacy Fund, Registered Trust, filed by Lawrence Hayes, attorney at law. What is this?" Ethan asked, his voice lower now. "It's my decision," I said softly. "Every dollar, every asset, shifted into a charitable trust. In Tom's name. In mine, it will fund books and tutoring for children who can't afford them. Seems more useful than a fight over insurance." Melissa blinked hard, trying to catch up. "You can't just... Clara, you can't do that. You didn't even tell us." "Neither did you," I said. The waiter came by with dessert menus, but no one answered him. He retreated quietly, sensing a storm. Ethan rubbed his forehead. "Mom, you didn't need to go this far. We just wanted to make sure you were safe. That I wouldn't make my own choices?" I cut in. "You wanted control, not safety. I know the difference. Tom taught me that long ago." Melissa's voice sharpened. "We were trying to protect you from mistakes. You're not as naive as you hoped." I leaned forward. "Melissa, I worked 30 years in a library. I've read every story about betrayal, and I can tell you the villain always thinks they're the hero." For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the piano, playing something slow and mournful. Ethan reached for my hand. Mom, we didn't mean to hurt you. I squeezed his fingers gently, the way I did when he was a child after he scraped his knee. I know, son. You meant to help yourself. That's a different kind of hurt. Melissa's face flushed. You're being unfair. I picked up my spoon, stirring my soup though it was already cold. Unfair is pretending concern while planning my disappearance. Her eyes widened. You heard us? Every word, I said. The driveway has thin walls. Ethan looked down at his plate. His voice cracked slightly. So that's it? You're cutting us off? I smiled faintly. No, darling. I'm freeing you. From expectations, from guilt, from the burden of pretending to care. Melissa pushed back her chair, shaking her head. You're making a mistake. I made plenty, I said, gathering my purse. But this one feels right. I stood, leaving the untouched soup behind. You were right about one thing, though, I added. This was my last birthday with you. Ethan's voice followed me as I walked toward the door. Mom, wait, where are you going? I turned back just long enough to meet his eyes. Home, I said. But not the one you think. Outside, the air was cool, the kind that smells like rain before it starts. I walked slowly, each step lighter than the last. When I reached my car, I glanced through the restaurant window. Ethan sat slumped, his head in his hands. Melissa was speaking fast, gesturing sharply. Her mask cracked. I felt a pang of sadness, not victory, not satisfaction, just the hollow ache that comes when truth finally replaces illusion. I got in the car and turned the key. The headlights cut through the drizzle, lighting the road ahead. The town looked smaller at night, every building folded into shadow. As I drove, I remembered something Tom once said after we'd argued years ago. You can't control how people treat you, Clara, but you can choose when to stop inviting them in. I smiled. For the first time in years, I'd chosen well. By the time I reached home, the rain had settled into a steady whisper. I went inside, slipped off my coat, and placed the purse on the table. The envelope was gone, but the quiet felt earned. I made tea, listening to the kettle whistle. The porch light blinked twice before steadying. I watched it from the window, that small, stubborn glow refusing to die out. Then I said it aloud, softly, to the empty room. Goodbye, Ethan. Goodbye, Melissa. The words didn't sound bitter. They sounded clean, like the first breath after a long, cold swim. Tomorrow, I would leave this house for good. But tonight, I allowed myself one small comfort, the quiet hum of peace, wrapping itself around me like a familiar song I'd finally remembered how to sing. I left town the next morning before the sun rose. The sky was pale and empty, the kind of gray that holds its breath before dawn. The road curved along the lake, and when I reached the cottage I'd rented, the world felt quiet enough to start over. The place was small. One bedroom, a desk by the window, and shelves that begged for books. It smelled faintly of cedar and rain. I unpacked slowly, folding my clothes into neat piles, arranging Tom's photo on the nightstand. His smile in that picture still made me straighten my shoulders. For the first time in years, I brewed coffee without listening for footsteps in another room. The silence wasn't lonely anymore. It was mine. Days slipped into weeks. I began volunteering at the town library, helping children choose their first books. The librarian, a young man with kind eyes, asked about the name of my charity. When I told him, his smile was warm. "That's a beautiful legacy," he said. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, Harper would visit. She'd bring a small box of cupcakes and light one candle. "Just one," she'd say, "because Grandma doesn't need many wishes. She makes them herself. We'd sit by the window, watching the lake shimmer under the fading light. One evening, as she packed her things to leave, Harper turned to me. "Grandma, do you ever miss them?" I thought for a moment. "I miss the idea of them," I said, "but sometimes love means closing a door and lighting your own candle instead." After she left, I lit a single candle, the same way I had on my birthday night, and whispered, "Happy birthday, Clara." The flame flickered, steady and small, just enough light to fill the room, and maybe a life.